다들 저기 알아들려 코와 세디 레다 뉴모모이 코와 깨와디 아니 지금 계세위 제라 네 가는 거였으네 내나자다 류라직 강아몽 중고레스 제가 아니 지게 메옵단 자와 안델리아 안동아게 동아시다 강아요 무디네 요두고레세네 제가 데니고 코와디 깨와 렘바디 안 깨와디 가르종 거였으네 레다 뉴모옹기 뉴모옹 깨와린 거레스 제가 다 뉴모바디양 가르르티네 용거스네 랑지 다슨 마릭 바텔레티네 용거레스 디네 인자 당하서 같이 오르스네 뒤디리네 송제 저 코와 깨와 렘바위 규디 뇽모바 임발레다 뇽모바 임에 하고 뇽모바디야 다슨 마릭 바텔레 중앙에 하고 와 인자 안디마 뇽모바 방고 그래서 지금 당한 저기 답방에게 탑람데라 아니 그 삼로 아주 삼로 교회 단에 방어자 삼로도 교와 갔던 거라서네 아주 가상의 슈바나신다 냠린지야디 룽아 예수님 제팀을 수름 소하다 진바서바 준비 안 삼대 셰랍디 냠내죠 디나지 다든지 셰랍세요도 다 조와 다음에 봐도 배 셰랍 디냠술렘 받는 방고 그래서지 당아서 로냠술렘 거야디 디소리에서 아니 매워서 거야디 녀모바다 디지마 다세 마릭 받기래서는 아니 아주 도스체네 디쇼게디네 슈루아.
Good morning. So this morning when we looked at the 10th verse, we saw how that having taken rebirth in this life, we did so due to a karmic imprint that was ripened by the conditions of afflictions, and then having taken rebirth, we encountered pain and illness, problems, sufferings and difficulties throughout this life. And all of these individual problems and difficulties, pain and misfortune that we encounter is due to karma and afflictions. And we also reviewed this ripening process, the ripening of karma, which was accumulated under the influence of afflictions, and all those afflictions have at their basis the ignorance of self-grasping. We're coming to know this, coming to recognize this, one will give rise to the wish to abandon this root cause, because through the abandoning of the root cause of our suffering, no suffering will again arise. And then how to abandon the root cause of suffering? Well, the root cause is an ignorance, a particular ignorance, ignorance of self-grasping. Being an ignorance, it is a consciousness. To counteract a consciousness requires another consciousness, ideally a directly contrary consciousness. So it takes one consciousness to grow in strength, to weaken and eventually eradicate the opposing consciousness. So therefore, one strives through meditating or cultivating the various supporting consciousnesses, such as ethical restraint, generosity and so forth, and in particular developing the wisdom realizing emptiness, the direct antidote to the ignorance of self-grasping that keeps us bound in the suffering realms of samsara.
then 디알랑아저 가르고 그랬으네다 디야네 지기 고외동을 타다게 줘야 치도다 디니 고미야디야 소수지구 치도 많이 봐 심지어 탐지기 있는 삼당 공고 그래서 지자디 심지어 디 가르치는 심지어 탐지기 있는 삼다 봐이나 ene penyendi yendene gyachewa ane nyubechewa ane sanju gobato be gyuchego res jisanda simjen tamjigi den samda de ngazo dangbo gare samdang goresene dishi shube shubanashi dangazo rang nashin shen chasan dewa dewa jibare dungan mideba jibare sene duchine samda de samdane simjen tamje dewa de tembar sho sambige jambako an simjen tamje dungadan jawa sho sebi niji komgo res 디 곰비게다 두시노 곰여도 하나가 뉴베 쳐줘도 하나 삼문나라 가르리 용거스노 오심제 동안다 자와데 니 지기 심제 남지 디기데 덴바데 니 주기 니 지기 삼베게 삼도시 리고레스다 고 두슬레데 디 곰비데 디 뉴베야 곰베네 뉴베야 쳐줘도 하나 같이 데네 갈리 그랬노 딩에 심제 탐지기도 하나 산주고 버터 지기 집에 한 도버쇼 심베 장주 셈규 귤레기아디 용거레스 다 데네게 장주 셈 귤레기에 바이나 대기 아니 개와 가르네 나중에 산조고바도 규체고래 사실 어도시는 아주 대시 되네게 쇼게 되네 쉬어라 와다.
This afternoon then I also presented how meditating in this way, cultivating this determination to abandon the root cause of our suffering, those series of meditations are the foundation for then being able to generate love and compassion. Having given rise to a deep understanding of the pervasiveness of suffering and samsara and its causes and its antidote, one then has the sufficient basis to turn one's attention to the plight of others, recognizing that all ordinary beings are just like me, longing for happiness, but are suffering in this wide variety of ways, just like I am. And moreover, they are suffering for the same reasons as I am. We are all in the same position. So now, whilst I've given rise to a determination to gain my freedom from this pain, how can I just leave them? They too want happiness. And we generate the mind of love, which is expressed as, may all beings experience lasting happiness. But they only cultivate causes that lead to happiness. But for that to come about, they need to be freed of suffering. So there we cultivate compassion. May all beings be freed of suffering and no longer accumulate the causes that will lead to suffering. We cultivate love and compassion based on our own understanding of our own suffering and our own path to freedom. We develop love and compassion to the extent where we generate a sense of responsibility for the welfare of others. We are no longer, our love and compassion has been developed to such an extent that we are no longer content with it being expressed as a mere aspiration, no matter how sincere and heartfelt. But having it as a mere aspiration is insufficient. I need to do something to help others. They are in the same position as I am, except I have seen the path that I need to cultivate within, and I'm striving to do so. They need help and assistance. This is my responsibility. I'm not going to leave it up to others to help countless sentient beings. I am going to join the bodhisattvas in striving to help others. So here one develops first the altruistic attitude of universal responsibility, which is where one takes responsibility for all beings. From there, it's a short path to generating bodhicitta. What is now required is we recognize our limitations in being able to help others. We have a sincere wish to help others, seeing it as our responsibility, but we recognize our limitations. We now commit to striving ever more determinedly to become just like our own spiritual teachers, and thereby be able to help beings in the same way that our spiritual teachers do, through becoming a Buddha. And here we develop bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, which is the determination to become a Buddha in order to alleviate all beings from suffering. Here we have generated bodhicitta, independent on having reflected on the sufferings of samsara and given rise to a determination to abandon the root cause of our suffering. Now, having generated bodhicitta, all the other virtuous meditations we engage in are conjoined with bodhicitta, and therefore become causes to attain our own enlightenment. And the benefit that comes to you as a practitioner as you go through these stages of first developing love and then compassion and then the altruistic attitude and eventually bodhicitta is as one develops these varying motivations on the basis of one's determination to gain liberation, is this determination grows in strength because our purpose is now so much more expansive. Any hesitation or delay no longer just impacts on our spiritual development and therefore only on us, but it impacts on our ability to be of benefit to others. Our strength of mind, our confidence, our determination all grow exponentially as we open our heart and expand it to embrace all beings.
나는 직사와 dinma 다제지 담치 미셈버스 나 균치 메버 류와이 자지된 제비게 로치라 이되바 줄로 젬베자세지.
Turning to the 11th verse, your intent upon the sacred Dharma is presently not single-minded due to having been ceaselessly deceived by the foe of enticing worldly affairs and activities. It is a mistake to focus your mind on these, Jumpo Drak.
That's a damage missing by saying on Zugeda, Jike Koa Toma Meban and Dadig Bardo on the Jikia, Zichi to Namian Law, Namian Yomo Choso, Matan Gaji, and the Jiki, Yamlin Yapochi Buddha, which is Matuba, or that's Zichi Zichi, damage missing by the Nigin Yamle Yapochi Matuba Inza, Zugi. Namane Dadiba do Yuma Chebache, and the Kovala Parky, and Dunga to the Ganga chair, the Kovala Gate body, the rest is a Tarbada, Tamji Kimbo, Goba, Tomato body, Dadaba, and the Sagi Chayo, Maran, the Jajumba, Tarbigo, Toyo Mare, the Moto body gained the Karacha, sending on to Guinemanma, the Negi, that is Yamling Rimba, the Buddha, or Yapuchi, Motobad, in the and then Lucine. Ma Mujuares, Tajambata, Dinecta, Tamji Kimbo, Tomoto, Diri, Sigor, that's easy Tamji Missemba said. Missemba, Gunjim, Luba, he said.
The reason why we still are bound in the suffering realms of samsara is because between this moment and back since beginningless time, we have not yet developed a single-pointed determination to attain liberation or enlightenment. Across this vast expanse of lifetimes, we have not yet generated that. Therefore, with lacking such a determination, we have not achieved the result. And the reason we haven't generated that result comes in the following lines.
The sick downward, that's easy, Tamji Missemba said, Tomama, Dadi Badu, and the Jiki Naming Choso, Soma de Pa, Gaji, Dambiche, Yamle Yapo de Geo Maresi Rota. And the Majevana Karjevare, and the Karjevare said, George Lido, Karjevare, Karjevare, now the Toma Dadi Badon to Karjevare. Arang digi kudu, arang chige kanga seo sen benga set disam gi digi to be ada dunga se dandala manze chige lagati levares that the lag karli gorsene chig aningi chingana digi kudu arangi kanga seo senje meeting desu ngalya kanga chigsen konsolyo konroje sosugi Digi to be a Dondala, Shanle Tsawada, Shala Nebata, Dine Jebigeta, Manzu Yomobo, Undu Gurjene, just a Rangi Digi to Yala, and the Tuacha Kondro, Nagala Soba Gation, and Jig, Dushin Yomoba Digi, and the Dushin as a legal bares. Then D legal levanza, Digi Anzule Chicket. The Digi Dingi Deva Dumotubada, Dumasematua, Dicebare, Sigurada, that's it, Tamji Missemba said. Dangwadi in that's it, Tamji Missemba said that Zichu Tadiba to Dushimajeva, the Karchevares, Karjeoresna, the knit in the Jeo, says Sigurada.
Here we reflect that when we look back at this life, we can see we have not lived this life with a single-pointed focus on attaining liberation and enlightenment, which means we didn't come into this life with such imprints from previous lives either. And if there had been a life up to now where we had developed such a single-pointed focus, we would be, if not having already attained liberation or enlightenment, significantly more progressed towards attaining that goal. And why do we find ourselves in this position? And it's because, again, we look back at this life and we know it would have been the case in each previous life too. Our mind has been focused, but merely on achieving the trivial pleasures and overcoming the trivial problems of this one life. This has dominated our every thought and resulting action, merely achieving some fleeting pleasure that is gone in a few moments, or overcoming some problem which is blown up out of proportion and soon will be forgotten anyway. Where we have lived these lives is under the sway of our afflictions, completely deluded by our afflictions, responding with anger and attachment to situations and events of no lasting importance. This is how we've continued to be deceived.
Denegeda, Desanga Yunchemeba, Luba Yiso, Jesa Denechin, Jeba the Yunchemu, Mudinegidina Jigor, the Digida Anzugi, Lubare City, Cohort Havares, Cohorvares, Cohorvares, Jacour, and Lubare said, D. Dundadi, Doksho Ligor, Shizanzu, Digi Duyeg, Dundala, Ganga said, and Digi Duyeg, Dundala, Laka Lidu, Desha Condon, Aja, Lega Ligor, D. Jebu de la Digi Mayon Aje, Dunga de Yungor, which is the Luba, the Gokova, the Gasore, Gutigi, Devu, Devanashin, Lega Chidu, Jebu de Maduba, de la Doksho Juba, and then Luba Sachi.
Your intent upon the sacred Dharma is presently not single-minded due to having been ceaselessly deceived. What has deceived us is our lack of awareness over what the causes to actual happiness are and the causes to suffering actually are. We continuously engage in conversation, activities, trying to achieve happiness, but yet the results that we experience always deceive us. We achieve some temporary happiness, and then it's gone. We get things to go our way, and then that situation's over. And we keep being let down, keep being disappointed. And here, our misunderstanding of reality is what deceives us. Our misunderstanding of the actual causes of happiness is what deceives us.
Sosugi Digi Juhiatan, Sosugi Dunga Segi, Dundala, Maranzugi, and Shishengi, Semchen, So Jebata, Semchen Yakanga, Shu Jada, Denegi, Jene, Di, Garichi was Dundala Karjas, Sosugi Digi Juhiata, Sosugi Dunga Segi, Dunga Sega, Sosola Kiwaya, Dundala, Digi Jigorabata. Jeza Denegi, Semchen, So Jobata, Semjala Ganga, Du Shivena. Yakaptele Devaro Chunchora Chikti Yonsi Varwa, Ina Digi Jebut Maubana, so Dunga Yongade, Digi Gudi Dine Chigo, Digi Yoya Dundal Chigorte, Jebu de Maubana, Dunga Batum of Yonga, the Diligore, Chesa Lubari, Gutigi, Jebu, Diki Yungo, Martilla, Docho, Rangi Debana, Shimaleva, Docho Mediva, the Ligores, Chesa Lubari. Zandusin and some Dana Java, Chidimbe, Java, and Simchen, Penyachuya, Mara Simchen, the nigger Suya, the Niki Ganga, social Ganga Seg, Digi to be done, Chigorwa, Nakasan Shubanashi, has kissing Shubanashi, Shengi, Jella Kuma, Kuya, that is Chojum Jadi, Sosugi, Digi to be done, Sosugi Dunga Seg, Dondala, Shandas and the Chigorwa. Chesa di Chojum Jadi, Digi Kuma Kuya, Digi, Nakap de Chik to Yungurate, the Jude de la Ganga Lede, and Chiki Dunga Yadi, Gutebudi, the Yungore. Dinashin Danga to do Sine, Chiki, the Sosuki, Digi Yon, the Dunga Seg, Dondala, Kosu Reson Chera, Denishungura, and then Negapine, there's Kosu Reson Manguchi, Tubine, Negapta, so Digis, but there's Pemperatus Yungurate, Digi Jebu Mahombana, Dunga, the Java Chimaina, and Dunga Yunga, the Chagoreche. And do Sina the Legaro Sineagic, Pentu, the Chen Sancha Mango Sue, Garasuos and Sosugi Benjora, Sosugi Benjorana, Digi to Ganga Segres and D. Dondala Sanjari Mangosue, D. Beju that Digi Jebu Digi Carlos and Sanjari Bejota Walatene, Mim, Dadenegi Nusemang, which point the Digi Jebu Duma, you had the Mangobana Duma Yare. Jemaja than the Sudin Chigara. On the Jisa, Dondala, the Nigi Lega, the Digi Duya, Duma Seg, Dondal Jigorte. Lega disu chebalete and Jibu to talk show Dumada and Ganyo at the Yungore, etc. Chisadi Luare, said this word.
Here we need to look at how we have continued to deceive ourselves throughout this life up to this point, and thereby can infer we would have in all our previous lives too. Should already be clear that everything that we say or do or think is motivated at a deep level to attain happiness. a happiness that is freed from all problems and difficulties. And we recognize that when we encounter problems of any magnitude, we immediately want to repel them. We want to abide in happiness. We don't want to encounter any difficulties. So despite having this as our underlying motivation, how do we behave? How do people in society behave? Readily take advantage of others, thinking that that will lead to happiness. Argue with others, engage in physical conflict with others, thinking that that will lead to happiness. Insisting on having things go their way, insisting that their way of seeing things is the correct way. And what happens? Problems just continue to be experienced. People acting this way, including ourselves, can never experience lasting happiness through applying these techniques. And in this way, we've been deceiving ourselves since beginningless time. And all these mundane activities, what we're talking about, things we talk about, things we get physically engaged in, we do so with a hope, may happiness come. And that lasting happiness is yet to be achieved. We have pleasurable experiences, but all too quickly they fade and leave us longing for more, even though from our own experience we know our wish for lasting happiness will never be achieved in this way. And this is our lived experience, and it's what we observe in the world. No matter what conditions people have, those who are bound in samsara are suffering. There are none of them who have found the secret to lasting happiness. So rather what we see when you look in the world is people continuously, as running around in a circular movement, engaging in activity after activity to try and have pleasurable experiences and running from one to the next, and never attaining lasting happiness, but only encountering further problems in their desire to achieve happiness, meeting further problems. So we can think of, for example, everyone goes to work to earn a living so as to have a comfortable life. But in doing so, people encounter so many problems and difficulties with their colleagues, with their customers, and so forth. And some industries so clearly lead to suffering for society. But yet, those people employed in those industries do so to achieve happiness. Those who are involved with designing and manufacturing of armaments, they do so because they want to earn a living and look after their family, and they'll have some philosophy like protecting their nation. But what happens when the fruits of their labor are utilized? Suffering is just magnified. So too, with those who directly and indirectly are involved with the environmental destruction. Our environment is being destroyed by people who thinking they are acting in a way that will bring them happiness. So we need to look at how we live our life, what we value, what we prioritize, where we put our energy, and ask ourselves, is this leading to the attainment of a state of lasting happiness, or are we only encountering further problems?
아니 이 되바 출로 잠베자 아시데 자지딘 제위 로치라 시데 자 시데 nga 준네베 기해 강아테가 생각 넘ኛ서 자식으로 왔다 마겹스인데 파쇼텔레 간솔 추 지마게도 추지 전자당 쇠에 장간도 자오레 사식으로 간솔 강아테 핸데 뇌핸데 시고로 타고시다 디나젠 자지딘 제위 로치라 시데 자 지딘비 자왈 팔로 고고다에 로디 가레선데시 아주 nga seti ngarang digi godo nga ganga sigosebe denege thone rang digi godo dige rang jizing samlo digi kunela dene de chadang ge ane shale ganga je de chawaji ge jesa lo di dire so da jidin je lo ji la si de jesa lo denege nga zule jawo rashin niga la ganga de hin samlo ane je che di zamgi digi da dunga se ge dala shen ya ko har ta ya da denege de chadang kongzhuo debi chola chaba mido ba de ya kongzhuo la ya ge ji rang ge yin yi chola chaba da rang ge ji shen yin mai mi chola jawo rang ge mido kongzhuo la ya ge denege samlo di ane ji di mi jawa nga zu ge go chi 로지라스 고고타와 디 고고탄 거레스 제산 가르 고고탄 거스 만주 디기 영야게 삽라 제고 둥아도 영주고 거레스 제산 디기 영야게 돈달에 디 베시탄 거데 제산디 디기 투투 마레스 제산 딜로 디기 파 증하즈를 자오 디레스 디수 이때라서 디수 포 삼나타바 있나 디수만도 디 약보를 디고 베지타베 디로 추와레스 제상아도 노르체고 거레스 디빵고 거레스 월다 디네기 삼노디 끼주요 마레스 파 뜨가 거레스
Your intent upon the sacred Dharma is presently not single-minded due to having been ceaselessly deceived by the foe of enticing worldly affairs and activities. It is a mistake to focus your mind on these, Jampaldrak. Here it identifies to us what our enemy truly is. The foe, our enemy, we normally would think of, for example, those involved in warfare. They very clearly can point out to who their enemy is, who is trying to harm them. Here, though, we must understand in the Buddhist context the term enemy or foe at a subtler level. It's referring to our own deluded minds. These deluded minds, these afflictions, these are what deceive us. We can understand it as being the thought, I want, and its companion, I do not want. This is the source from which all our problems come. From the thought of, I want, attachment follows. From attachment follows a behavior where we deceive others, take advantage of others, and so forth. From the thought, I don't want, there is an aversion, perhaps even anger, a pushing away. And from this comes conflict. We need to see then that what deceives us is this mistaken way of thinking and what our resulting behavior that follows. These enticing worldly affairs and activities that from this foundation of deluded minds or afflicted minds, we engage in activities where we believe they have real value. They will lead us to suffer less if we achieve them. They will lead us to experience more happiness if we achieve them. But they never do. We keep getting let down and disappointed. We keep following wrong paths. So therefore, it is a mistake to focus your mind on these worldly affairs and activities.
안데네 다 대수로 냠는 지겨 말 대수 발로디게 방고 그래 그 발나줄에 뇌기 라신이가래 뇌게 자원나 신디게 삼로 대수래 대수 밤에 봐서 그래서 제가 대수 매봐서야 나가지게 나가지 냠는 가르쳐 그래서네 대주쇼 쉬바나지 시야 심자 탐철이야 지기 잠바콤야다 닌조콤야 아니지게 디던달에 심자 탐지게 동아대양이 시기 디기 주긴 선배 삼다야 디네 토능에 심자 탐지게 돈 산조고바 토벌쇼 세베게 삼다야 대성한 좀 냠내지야 디엔자다 디나싱아주 류마 이순요 권에 샬라 너버 지금에 선배 삼노 디네랑기 류로제 계속다지 바텀제 샬리야 당기 푸기 인선베게 삼다야 디네 지셴이 녀바치야 델리야 직셈 투지 파 남상 코로나 렌야다 디지금에 선배 삼다디 디 삼노디 쟁아줄이야 장도르 제고 디레스 고다데.
Here we need to really come to recognize that our true enemy is this faulty way of thinking that leads us to waste our lives chasing worldly affairs, engaging in activities of no real value. This faulty way of thinking is what harms us and harms others. And through being deceived by it, not only do we harm ourselves, but we actually harm others too. The way to abandon this is what we looked at in detail this morning. Cultivating love and compassion for sentient beings. Developing that to the point where one takes responsibility for their welfare and then determining, but to really fulfill this responsibility, I have to become enlightened for their sake, generate bodhicitta. And then the companion practices of ethical restraint, where we again commit to not bringing harm to others through our behavior, speech, or way of thinking, generosity of giving of ourselves to others, and patience, the mind that stays undisturbed in the face of adversity.
dine zada dine ge nyamlen jeba lo deso samlo digyo deso nyamlen jeba na an nga samlo di yarge ta ba ina di devola nga so le tiki yungure es rashin ka le tiki yungure es ra le dewa yungure sha la dewa tu gure es jiza rashin jiza nga so ko ya di da tiki was jiza di tu go re jere jiza dine zada nga do shine ne samlo dine ge gomba gom nyamlen jeba ina de gewa chima ane lhada mi ko wa ki tu ya ane chigi ndi ma se nga de ka se nyuba che ro be ne de ne samlo de ka se nyuba che ne gyudi nyuba shuk che ne de bu de ya ga chi li ko ba ting ting je ne de bu de ting je ane gyudi nyuba chung de de bu de chung ma de ya me ro da je san de ne ge nyamnen de gomba ba shuk chen bo re chen be na nga de che de le ne ya mi gi ane cha sang ge so so ya zi hu dang gu shep 안 통을 그래서 그래. 제자다 미 지후다 소소를 구이셔도 통하나 소소 기부여로 와다. 제자다 내 소소 미 구이셔다 소소를 지후다 직 통을 제외네 소소기 미들에 기시 가르셰베네 펜바야가 야 주투고로 와. 진짜 펜도 야 개체 주투고로 와. 제자 라신이가 하면 체딜에 삼다베네. 아니 안직미 지후여 봐. 안 지금 미 통여 봐. 미 나셔 미야 고요라. 미디베 상보여라. 세야디. 미 공회신다 마신 차상에 두스네. 소수게 담냐다이나 디네 용거리 예제래. 제사데 소수리 미 지구다 야고요도 소수기 왕체도 왕탕라서는 전부 차제. 지금 미마 소수기 두수지 지역으로 디네 지교말 셰베네. 베 년거리에서 미 년고라서 제산 왕탕 차고래 미 소수기 왕뒤투가 차 왕탕 차고래서 연된디 용거래서 체딜에 삼다면 다 개와 침마 삼다면에 개와 침마 하다 미고 버터나 되게 연대 약부 약고야다 디텔에 하바도 디마세 안나가서 디레 하바 대화증이 신함세 등아주 통고 말 제가 대화증이 신함세를 개와나 데네 개와나다 데네기 아주기 zemlinala 사진나신 기우 사지 되게 기우 코르요 되게 장마 아직 될려야다 막초다 데네기 자세도 둥하다 강하게 자사데 싸우기는 거야 말이죠. 둥하기 자세하다 강하 요래서 욕라요서 균여 거야. 영어요 말이지. 균여요 말이지. 땅 아주 이게 직 잘라로 소수기 되봐 사야 동야다 데네가 소소 가래 고베나 그 라신기 신 이제 박삼이 신세데 데네기 신파 직파 예야다 소소 고래 가르 고에나 레요 알아서 그래. 다직 매도 dum라다 스위밍풀 로다 배직 오늘 시호주열에선 안델이야 매도로 직제 아니 닝바라셔도 양직 학과 지기 레진 뒤에 차상 장모라 차든 이네 토야매 봐시온 거래서 진짜 되네 자 안델이야 제리 팬비에 삼로 자와 팬배장장 주제도 최장장 제요래서 진짜 되네게 대화증의 신인들 개발이나 누수요래서 연내로 시장은 저기 제사다데 개와외바 메세데 가와슈요스 대화진의 슈요레세 제산 신이 개와외바 메게 신감세 대화진 신감세 되네게 그 tan가다 되네게 니주 슈지슈 용도와 제산 땅아주 디스 통고마다 메라마다 데수게 저기 더다 유나르마 더나는 되네 순고로와 제사데 유타지 되네게 여바 타셔 바로 되네 요레세지 안 순고로 제사 야슈셈 곰바이나 잠니 조금 내가 되네게 개와 곰바이나 마달에 개와치 말하다 미고 봐도 그리 점블을 삼다베네 안 딜을 하 누바쳐나 안내가 저기 대화전에 개야다 되는 용도 그래 해야지
As one engages in these meditations, receiving teachings, meditating on them, cultivating minds such as love and compassion, and so forth. In fact, all these minds that we are virtue, that we encourage to develop, as one develops them ever more within oneself, you will start to experience an inner transformation. You'll come to recognize you are not the same person you used to be. You'll recognize the ready arisal of love and compassion. You'll recognize how much more focused you are on cultivating minds of virtue and how you aren't so drawn to worldly affairs and activities. They don't entice you in the way they used to. Rather now, you seek out and with joy engage in opportunities to benefit others. Moreover, your mind is much more decisive. You have more confidence in decision making, in that your wisdom is shining through. Your mind is ever less afflicted. And the way one experiences this is in many ways. Firstly, your own mind is ever more at peace. You experience deep inner well-being, and this enables you to spontaneously open yourself to others whenever you encounter them, to easily give of yourself to others. Restraining the mind from non-virtue, from afflictions, is relatively easy because your mind is now stable and calm. Moreover, the way others will interact with you will be remarkably different from previously. Because in the same way as you'll be aware of your own inner evolution, others will see the change as well. They will know you're not the person you used to be. Their trust and reliance on you will be greatly enhanced. They'll see you as someone dependable, someone straightforward, honest, and genuine. They'll relate to your kind nature, your gentle heart. They'll trust you and be open to you. And this respect that you receive from others, because of your own spiritual development, you'll recognize it's just a dependent arising. It's come about in dependence on the qualities that you are arising, and it's nothing that makes you particularly special. It's rather just a reflection of the magnificence of the Dharma that's arising in your mind. And moreover, because of your own inner development, the way you'll put to use or utilize this respect and close relationships you have with those around you is you'll guide them in how to cultivate the causes for happiness and turn away from the causes that will lead to suffering. This will bring great joy to you because you're fulfilling your deep, deep aspiration. May I be of real help to others. May I help them beyond just overcoming immediate suffering. May I help them gain freedom. And because of how you are transforming as a person, they'll look at you as a role model, be inspired by you, and be receptive to what you have to say. And you'll recognize this, and with joy, you'll share of yourself to them. So in this way, through training well, in this very life, you will experience benefits, and those around you will experience benefit from your endeavors. Moreover, you'll know because of the power, the virtue you're creating, future lives are taken care of. You don't need to worry about falling to the lower realms. In fact, you'll know there's a distinct possibility that you'll take rebirth in a pure realm, in a pure land, in your next life. These are lands that are unseen by beings such as ourselves, but they're a place completely free of conflict. There is no dispute, there's no disagreement there. It's a place of peace. Beings who abide there abide with inner peace. The environment is peaceful too. All needs that beings have are instantaneously, spontaneously fulfilled without effort. There is no conflict and there is no need because all needs are fulfilled. The environment is one of great magnificence and beauty. If we were to compare it to our world, we would imagine large, beautiful, clear lakes, meadows, mountains. And we can sometimes see them in the tankas of such as deities such as Amitabha. In the background will be painted Pure Lands. And they're presented in a way that we can relate to is the immense beauty of those lands. And we understand that there, all that is required to be able to focus on our spiritual development is there. Dharma teachings, a place free of distraction. So that is the kind of result that one is creating by transforming our mind in this life. Our future rebirths will be free of the possibility of falling to the lower realms and may even result in rebirth in a pure land.
Samla Chanshu Sem Seada Guleki, Nanzu Guleki on deux, Chizan Chanshu Sem Guleki on deux, Denanga to Ya Chik Gomje Ya Nubacher, and Sosogi, and the Kuchiku, Sanki, Tiki, almost a cheat at that out of the Jizun Juma Seada, Genesis said that in a Kuba Kunda chair, Madongo staying out of the chair in Nuba Merwa, 제상 나중에 삼로데 두시네 냠는지 장주 셈 기길에 계제 두시네 유바야 공부를 해도 되는 꾸고서라 제다 꾸디기 내가 미나미 나신 기해바 나신 나줄이야 냠내지 림바 라비아 소소 하모디 바기 스티야다 된데 용어를 해서 저다디 내가 된 두시네 냠내지네 되는 타도라 하는 아주게 그 탐제 세네 연대 탐제 신의 상교 고마세 독투구리 해서지 제자디 거저 연대 마소나 때 내가다 타도다 되네게 연대 바도메 봐 아니 지게 용고를 해서 제자디 네게 공비 제보 제자 대소 공부하려나 잠니제 자주 셈라서 공비 때네 진바다 추즘라서 수변 냠는 제바 있는 디 제보 데라 둥아야 유네요 말서 루어요 말에서 제자 디 제보를 디기 요에다 타쳐 말해 저래다 제자 루어요 말에 제자 니 냠는 제고 그래서 야지 디 숨고를 당해서 될이야
To bring about this remarkable transformation, we need to train sequentially in the sequence of trainings as has been presented over this retreat, culminating in this generation of bodhicitta. It's in particular when bodhicitta is generated in our continuum, and when we arise from that cushion as a bodhisattva, it's then that we are deeply, deeply transformed, and our way of interacting with others and their way of relating to us will be incomparable to all our previous lives. Then one receives benefits that for us are unimaginable. For example, we see these many magnificent statues, the two of White Tara and Green Tara, and the statue of Manjushri and so forth. So for us, these are just static statues that only serve as a basis to generate faith and aspiration. But as a bodhisattva, we will engage with them as living beings, as the enlightened expression of the enlightened mind in the form of Manjushri, in the form of Tara, and be able to receive guidance directly from them. There are unimaginable benefits, both in the short term as well as in the long term, to generating bodhicitta. Bodhicitta, just like all the other ethical virtuous minds that have been mentioned, such as ethical restraint, generosity, and so forth, all of these are non-deceptive. They are not like the minds that are of desire and aversion that entice us towards worldly affairs and activities. They are the minds that deceive us. The virtuous minds, from the very beginning of precious human rebirth, recognizing precious human rebirth, up to now, up to bodhicitta, none of these are deceptive. All of them will lead to the desired results of lasting happiness.
주게 삼는 날라가요. 근데 세딜이야 개월을 제외나다 개와치마든 진강송을 말을 기가 말해서 시 투여스가요. 막하르스네 개왕 아마네 디바 먹고 사요로 와서 매 삼로 지요로 봐. 세상 개왕 아마네 가상 기니 슈바나지 개왕 아마네 디바 먹고 사요 바네 개와치마들이야 대부디 미엘이야 긴 요모 버지 채우고래. 균 요모 바디 마체나 체들이 요모 바디 매바 마체바나 디네기 기투야요 말해. 세상 디네자 저기 체딜이야 소수기 되샤셔다 녀모보다 녀보 땡지파 매바를 쇠베이나 되니 개왕아마 레앙아바 망고 사이는 디기 나선을 기투 두고 말아서 기니 규창고 말아 진짜 사번도 쉬는 조스가라 샤번도 뉴기 개요 말 대기 추당 류 죄망고 고고래 디나신 당아 저기 코아게기 동아 녀야기 규도 사요 받나야 긴 녀모보다 매나 아니 기투야 매바래서 제가 되는 체딜이야 저기 진냠낸 제제 녀모바 소소 체델이야 녀모바 깨마주바 가샤바 가투바이나 개왕아만의 디보 먹어서 있는 디기 제보디 뉴바기 토야 말 세상 코 뉴바디 충충충 두고래 제래 세상디네 자다가도 체델이야 녀모바디 매바 소야디 빼마서 계치 못 차고 그래제 어두시나 두시네 숨고르바.
For those who are weighed down by regret and guilt for misdeeds in this life, thinking, how can I spiritually develop? How can I grow into a bodhisattva when I have done these misdeeds in this life? And certainly would have done these and worse in past lives. How is it possible for someone like me to spiritually develop? I don't feel I really have hope. If one feels like this, remind yourself that everything that is being presented here is as true, as relevant for you as it is for everyone else. For a karmic seed, no matter how grave, to ripen, it needs the ripening conditions. So just like if I were to place a seed on this table, absent the ripening conditions of soil, warmth and moisture, nothing will happen. So no matter what non-virtues you may have done, these seeds can be left on your continuum and cannot ripen when you abandon the afflictions. So strive in the same way that's been presented here to clear your mind, no longer being deceived by these afflictions. And in this way, everyone can attain freedom.
That ne imba na je da che da do se gang jung zam le de ne jiang nin sen du che la ma be na du chi wer gyu de jian be zha.
The 12th verse. If you do not retreat to an ideal, secluded place deep within a forest, relying only on whatever simple sustenance is available and exerting yourself night and day in the Dharma, you will regret it at the time of your death, Jampaldrak.
Ani imba na yu che da du se gang jung zam le de ne jiang si du. Ji sang an de ji oda nga cham ju gi se de pa mi me sa ji ga xing na de ne gi ji de bu du se ne imba pa de se ne imba na yu che da du se. Dan de du se ne de ba ne imba na mi yos me ba an de ji ne imba jam li ne ji lai de. Na khala ma so na se gang ju zam na de ne ja ji se di le na da ji so so ge sa ya ji ga ri ne ji sa ya ji xin ba da ji ya wo sam ma da ji kan sa ya ji ra na ji ba ji ro ho zhuo jiang si ji yue ne ji ba ji du ji ne an du ji de ba yin na ne ji du ji de ba yong gu ba de se gang sam ji le gang ju zam na de ne ja se de ji ge Kala business yes sawo sai me na an bui da wo me na yin ji ge ko kala zhuo jiang se ji sai ji du jin jun jie de ne ji ne dian bai na o da de ne ge de bai na da ne dang bo nie dang ne kala ge de ji xi wo da ding yi de.
If you do not retreat to an ideal, secluded place deep within a forest, relying only on whatever simple sustenance is available. So here we are being encouraged to look beyond the immediate, to see ourselves in a place, a remote hermitage, somewhere quiet and peaceful, and with a mind that has already been well trained, a mind that is not drawn to worldly affairs and activities. Thereby will be a mind that is simple, that is satisfied with simple sustenance, wanting to sustain the body so that one can continue one's mental transformation. That is sufficient. One isn't drawn to delights anymore, other than the delight of transforming the mind.
Adiring de jam ting ting se ten yo ta gyun yo ko ma so jam ting de ki bu duwa sem be sam lo chi tu sta de ne ge sam lo sta na de che di zam yo so se de ge zam lo sam da yi wa da ro wa di zam da da an di ma ze han ji sam lo chi na le ya da nga de we na da chi mi de sam lo du go se ne mi an ji tam nya da ge da yo ha ge de ne ge sam da che de we ne ji go ma le je le. 지사다 소소 체들려 다들 녀타 기네 미도 점네 기우도 대대대 야부도 선비 삼로 되네잖아 지고 말해지래 지산디 나서래 개와 치마 안에 직패기 규사고 말 탈바다 탐지기 먹고 반야 삼로대 규사 두고 말해 안에 개와 치마 하다 미고 바토에 규야 사투고 말 디체 디잠기 삼로 차고래 지야 땀년달라 차배 차바 Chakwa le song rwa, chisa nyomo pa lik duwa si wari, tam nyanda soso tam nyakuyo, nyanda yakuyo. An di yang le, an di yang di ma zi lakpa to kara chakwa suna, an jema, an din ma tuyen chi, ma jisol ma rwa, o nga jiki dine ya, ne dine chi le enpa chi lo diki chi tsam duyen siya di, dine ma xie chen, an mi jiki yang jiki mi soso ki jiki juanbi ki juan rati pa xie, mi xa san tsu jiki, 소소로 구베체다 소소로 닝구를 해야기 된다라 삼나 따지 되니게 삼나 되니 다 되어봐이나 notorious ditigo mares chesa ditigo mare chesa ninsen de chola mabena chesa pyi de je kala ni embala de kala de gyurasa de nimen nyenga ya an chue samma je negap de ne jira samda je kuno de ne keje je de bena ditigo mares 아니 가시오라스네 뒤치거를 교도 잼베타 시데 제산네 임발도 두스네 두스티네 끼어와레데 수수기 끼어치마 끼어야기 야고야기 아니 지 규사 투요 말에 아니 지게 달바다 탐제 기보고 봐 규사 투요 말에 제산 디네 엔자 사야디 뇨모데 그지 담냐다 요야 담라 차고 차바 냔다라 차바 라라 닝고 차베 차바 체지점기 네 엠발에 기우도 선배 차바 디네 끼데 완자 니기 데보데 마음바나 동아야 마데 대하시오 말에 제산 치갈에 겨바기 그래서 되는 지겨 말해야지 송거래
For people whose minds are busy and they will have busy lives too, are likely to be drawn to the idea of being somewhere quiet and peaceful. Because what they really long for is a mind that is quiet and peaceful. The problem, though, is if one does retreat to a secluded place deep within a forest, if one hasn't properly prepared, one will go there with a mind not so dissimilar from what you have now. At first, it'll be quiet and peaceful, and one will feel greatly pleased at being away from the hustle and bustle of life and all those responsibilities. But without having prepared well, the afflictions still remain strong and continue to delude the meditator. The meditator then very quickly will start thinking about how others back home must be talking about them and where they are, and talking about how incredible it is what they are doing. And here, all that's happening is the affliction of pride is growing in strength. And from this will follow fantasies about, when I've finished here and I've done my few months or my few years, I will return with renown and reputation. And people will come to me seeking my advice and wisdom. And in this way, without being well prepared, one will end up in a secluded place, just strengthen one's afflictions, strengthening one's delusions, remaining deceived. And then instead of exerting oneself night and day in the Dharma, one will waste that opportunity. And then when death comes, regret will follow.
어디니기 어두스 삼다되나 안직제나 데디고 말에는 시간을 교받기 그래서 안다 가르쳐 오래라도 되니기 내려야 내바되는세 직강중점이 되네 맞아 검겨봐이나 될이야 지금 코위 동화 코발에 탈고도 셈비기 코발에 탈도기 내중검 안금 지금 가상 휴반의 정한의 권조는 점로게 점로 삼다 되네 코발행 탈비 탈등 내중검 되네는 지금 대시 쇼가 셰바나 정하는 중에 네 벤디침바도 추려 수비냐면 띵에 진검이야 신년 주비하게 되네 공바에 공모그레스 안 중내데 딜레 하바도 안 주게 신래 잠바다 저와 니지 공미하다 셈자 탐지 동아대 된도 장쇼 셈고 두세 냠내 지고 대수 삼라 다바 직장바에 되네 엠발에 되지도 상바에 안지게 두스 되바에 소설이야 지게 니 담기 전에 강중 마중 뭐텨바인자 셈 남면에 용주고 그랬으니 그래서 당연히 지도나이도 지금 여기다 디레샤 지지지제자 니저도 망고 거야요와 안미를 통해 망고요와 데도 안셈디파 남면을 쉬어야 이게 배지 고급시요와 내내 엠발로 되지도 세변에 암주 거야셔라 말 미게 통해 가야지 셔라요 말에 다지게 네 권에 자루 끼로 심전 끼로 권을 셔야면와 제가 데네엔자 데네기 공바이나 소수이 냠는디 지기 약보시 용도 그래서 제자디 안딩이 좀 거만에 딩이 좀 깨래 레라 용 그래서 남매매봐 두시네 제 강제래 데니기 내엠바된 공바이나 냠는 두수 삼당고 그래서 니제바 있나 안디 겨봐요 말해서 그래서 뒤수에 땅와래 뒤수 땅와나 좀제에 대한 마음바나 약보주야 이 말에 제자데 딕도여래서 그러죠.
Rather, one should retreat in an ideal secluded place deep within a forest having prepared well, having prepared one's mind well, already having generated a stable motivation for liberation from samsara. This is essential, because then one can abide in an ideal secluded place, being content with whatever simple sustenance is available, because one's mind is not going to be so readily deceived by the afflictions enticing us towards worldly affairs and activities. We'll be able to make use of this incredible opportunity, valuing it correctly and putting it to good use, using our days and nights focused now on developing our definite emergence, our determination to emerge from the suffering realms of samsara. We'll utilize this opportunity to develop single-pointed concentration now that we are finally somewhere quiet, somewhere peaceful, away from the hustle and bustle of life and all those responsibilities. Now I'm somewhere where I can develop single-pointed concentration. Moreover, we'll be able to exert ourselves day and night by thinking of minds of the Dharma such as ethical restraint, love and compassion, developing the mind of bodhicitta itself. This is the purpose of retreat. First, having generated stable foundation of a stable determination, then when one is ready, retreating to an ideal secluded place and utilizing our time there, day and night, to cultivate the various minds of the Dharma now that we are free of distraction. This is how to train, and train in a way that one will never regret.
That in my Sixaba, Lardadi Yenshi Kunyu Lu, Setini Banang, Lodanja, no longer Chu Buala, Dachakurmaje Jambajas.
The 13th verse. These days, friends and loved ones are, in general, all deceptive. This life can be likened to lightning flashing across the sky and wealth and possessions to water bubbles. From now on, do not be attached to them, Jampodrak.
Lardadi Yenshi Kunyu Lu, Sedu, Danganzuki, Jidani, so Larson, Jidani, Anzuki, Dadi, Anzula Karshi Orsena. Dingi Punjare, Nye, Jita, Mansam Nalia, Jingi Puno Rochi, Disugish, Punjala Nugu, Shanlaka, Ganga Jigosabiki, Shalia, Jeko, Power Condola, Shanla, Novikia, Ondusine, Yungurva, Chisanganzuki, Dinigi, Jigor, the Ina Danganzuki, Lu said the Garsos, Rang Shidu Gabla, Nazo Kari, Chenaman, Nangazuki. Bunyan Sen Bunyan Bajik Nuba Chempo, the Wanda Chempo Katsu Yobene Digi Nazu Shidu Pandotu Mares, Tizanda Nazu Shidu Kira de Carriorasena, Digba said, and Gawani the Kira, Sedelia, Shelia, Nube Samba, and Ganga, Duja, Condron, Ajegi, Duba, Yomonga Zeki, and Digi Nuba Digba said, Nuba de Ba, Mazu Shidu in the two waters. Gawa Gazero Savan and Digi gave nobody on the Shidu in the two waters. Jazan on the Shidu draw, Kira, Yum the Dread, Gawa the Divatis. Jazan that Sedelia, Jidani Punjada, Nyeda, Wana Chempo, she would Chubene Kunji Lucy doing on the Shidu Kablo, so Jibu Drea, Mado, Disunium the Chidra Jammers, Jazan on the Shidu, Desugi, Manzokanga Chealia, and the Goptuagi, Goptumares, Pando. Jetugo Maria said, this is what Daddy Shin Kunyu said.
Just going to slightly change the word order of the first line, just to bring the correct emphasis. In general, these days, friends and loved ones are all deceptive. Again, as emphasizing in general, which is what the Tibetan starts with. But here what we need to look at is to the extent that we've generated a determination that I need to abandon the afflictions, I need to gain freedom from suffering, and to do this I need to cultivate a wide variety of virtuous minds. We need to then look at these worldly activities and affairs that dominate our way of thinking and thereby our speech and behavior. And within that, we look at our friends and loved ones and how they influence us, what impact they have on us. Because all too often, they take us in a way that on the surface isn't necessarily away from virtue towards non-virtue, but because of our relationships with friends and loved ones, our afflictions readily arise, whether it's attachment or anger. And in this way, the relationships and the activities we engage in together, these can lead to the strengthening of our afflictions and be contrary to what we're trying to do on the meditation cushion, which is gain freedom from these afflictions. So here we need to look at our relationships and see where they are already, or how they can be transformed so that our friends and loved ones are companions in our cultivation of virtue. So here we need to look at our current situation.
That's it in the Barna Lodang Jas. Now the Missidi, Jidang, the Yajuniwara, Lord Dujuki, Jingbura, Samara, Chikore, Yina do some Daven and Anzuki, Missipe, Tunures, Namki Lona, Banana, Chena, Chabaja, to the Lord Kude, Chooks, Jigbars and Lamsan, Meva Chadua, Dina, Shinganzu, Missiti, Banang, Lord Oshire, to Tundores or Tundores, the hang of the Missiti, and Chig Lord Jidani, Kijukupus, just doing a Dueg, Nubayuna, Baria, but King and Mangotage, the Nigiton, energy, Ma Chige, Shitoyaki, never yours, Chisan Banangi, Lordi. Gedina Barde, Yomarco, Genji, Ted, Barge to Kulmado, Gedina, Lord Kuasio Marwa, Chesani, Chesan to get the Lord Tundu, in that on the Mississippi, Gedina, Temba Tasha, she would do 2 rivers in Abayo Madelia, Kim Mambu, or Gangam Hoteria, Chesa Tail, and Tiki. Cashin the Lord Chunshun, the Shidra, Cashin the Lord Barma, the Shidra, Cashin Patrick to sing Uduas, it's now the dining bolang on the Mississippi, Tundu, and Namge Lona, she retas. Your Rocho or that Kiji Mitawa, Sungor, that just the Namgo Lord took Barding Barjan, Bashiro and Najing House, Missy the Kiji by your two wars, just on you two wars, just Namgo Lona, Tembu Yo Mares, Sungor, that on that Tedine Pano Lot on Jas.
Secondly, we encouraged in the second line then to reflect on this life. In the second line, this life can be likened to lightning flashing across the sky. So by this stage in our meditations, reflecting on the great extent of past lives that have already come before this one and the many that will follow, looking at this with this very broad perspective, this life is seen as incredibly brief. It has great potential, incredible potential, but when we look across the expanse of time, this life is incredibly brief. And this is the case whether for those who die very young or those who live a long life. Across the expanse of time, this is just one brief life. And just like a flash of lightning comes about in dependence on causes, so too, this life came about in dependence on causes. Its lifespan is also dependent on causes, as will be the ending of this life. Here we are being encouraged. This life that we have come to value, to this life whose potential and purpose we have recognized, to here be reminded that it will end soon. It will end sooner than we'd usually want. And if this is the case also with our life, that it is so brief and unstable in that its duration is not fixed, also the events that up to now have drawn us to, what with our desires, or repelled us from, these too, all these problems of the past, all these pleasures of the past, gone and forgotten. They weren't worth their energy. Here, all that we experience is brief and fleeting, particularly this life, and we relate to it then as like lightning flashing across the sky.
That's somebody no longer chew Buatas, Bualas, 제상아 저게 체디기 변조 균열 사야디 취부원하시래세 출이야 뭐지도 맨날 출로지도 뭐가 천지 남상 되어주면 자르고도 제상아 저 체디기 변조 균열 사야디 균열 사야디 변조에 저기 무원하시래세 제상 템부 휴지 차야 말스 제상 게시 되어서요바나 저 사야라 지 파갈래 하고 파사외네 남상 안지 지고 가서래 구마셔야게 냥아 안 촐라줘야게 냥아 안디스네 안지게 두숑그로와 제자지 무한하시레스 아니 닝보시라요마 메바레스 오다.
And the third line, on wealth and possessions to water bubbles. Here we look at all the things that we have and we've had it throughout our life, that we've longed for and been drawn towards and strived to get, as well as those that we've repelled and didn't want. All this effort that we made to gain things or to protect ourselves from things, where are they now? They come, they fade away, and they're gone. All these events that have drawn us so, all these possessions that have drawn us so, they come and they go. They have no essence, they have no real value. The energy and the time that occupied us to either attain them or push them away, hardly worthwhile. They have no essence. They're not worth the energy we expend on them.
제상 부화로지 되네 남사 되어도 그래 부화 라발렌 캐르나 다른 거 캐 남사 되어도 그래 매바자 디디 세보로 와당아 저기 유래식 벤저 사기생이 저기서 남사 저로 걸어와디 제상 템보요 말았어 다 don다니 뭐 가르치고 그래서나 아 저기 세델이야 나 저기 내가 가르치고도 세나 아주 내 분야에 내 디자냐 바디 촐 삼당아 저기 되네게 토네 뒤시 망보직도 실례가리고 그래서 안 될이야 제가 저 체될이야 아직 변조고 지지서 내가 변조 돈다 내가 자냐 주디 개와치마 가서 개와 삼라 마다 맞지 아주게 탈바다 탐지기 바다 개와치마 하다 미고반 디톨라 삼마다 체될이야 직 변조를 산에 디기슈 두투고 강아 차상 세 투고 바댕아서 삼르디 고고 그래서 제가 랑기 분야에 니 다슈 직 조고도 망고 시우지여바는 니가도 디기 차상 두투야다 강아 차상 세 투야게 삼고 그래서 니 제가 디 삼르디 노트 차고 그래서 제가 땅안 저기 시저디 갑라 유변조 같이 여바는 디기 마시에가 가 투야 가야 말해서 시저디 되는 맛지가 강가 캐요 말이야. 기투 말이야. 규변조 가서 여변하다 될야 샤샤 저야부터 기투야요 말이야. 님 분야 직다다 직년산의 소소고 조보 가고 니보 니버 첨부 왕당 첨부 변조 좀 가져요나 로봇이 티투야요 말이야. 소소 지구 줘야 돼. 제가 되네기 지게 년 망부 여기랑 변조 첨부 여기겐지 시조도 갈라 가고 개발한 지구 줘야 돼. 배네 미교쇼지 년분야에 매되가 사야도에 매되 규절라 가면서 시르도 그런 집으로야 되니 시도 직바로야 돼서 네가 가고 변주 년년 니도에 태요 말 유변주에 태요 말스 다 가르쳐야 열었으네 니가 그러니 개와 가서 쌓이는 네 개와도 캐두고 그래 디바 가서는 디바도 좀 캐두고 그래 캐디 개와도 디바도 돼서 제사 디네엔사 나주 미세 통통지마도 메디카블야 아니지 삼로디 년 분야 년예다 지징의 분야를 지지 아주 기부 땅을 링가도도 디긴한서 분야 뉴도 스파 추부자다 아주 분야에 딩의 잘라 추고도 지gin도 분야 인도 추부자다 디네다 귤로제 체디기 동화세의 디기로 유변 어디양 알고 니양 알고 유자냐사되는 아주기 디네게 삼나 코라제 최제기 개와치마 나사다 미고방 토예 된다다 탈바다 탐지kimbe 고방도 얘기 냠낸 맞제바 있나 아니 용하라고 그래서 그래 제산지 마즈래 용하라고 그래 제사 미세 통노지 나나 한지 내내게 자네 아주 개와 두야디 개침보래서 디지북이 다 변조 가지고는 왕당 침보 분이서 가제나 시들레 판도 말다 하서 그래 루그레 루아레서 디스 그래
The essence of this verse is to get us to wake up and to look at our mind and how we relate to our friends, our loved ones, our wealth and possessions, and to recognize the insanity of how we have lived our life thus far, of the attitude that has dominated us thus far, and rather to develop a more balanced approach, a more realistic relationship to friends, loved ones, wealth and possessions. Recognizing that the possessions that we desire are unstable. They always fade away. They break, or we find no more use for them, or are no longer attracted to them. In this way, they are likened to water bubbles. In no time, the value to us is lost. Yet, we desired them so. We strived to get them. And for what? In no time, their value to us is lost. And likewise, we look at our interactions with friends and loved ones, and we see where how these tend to lead to the dominance of afflictions in our mind, of attachments and anger and so forth. And all of these interactions, whether towards possessions or with people, all of this we do with a desire for happiness. But no lasting happiness can be achieved in this way. And moreover, when this life passes and our death comes, everything that we have valued will be left behind. Every possession, every loved one. And they will not, even our loved ones will not be able to help us at the time of death. We will have to go and leave them behind. And if we think of the most powerful people in our world, the wealthiest people in our world, when they die, just like us, and just like beggars on the street, they'll leave everything behind. And all these groups of people, the wealthy, the powerful, ourselves, and the impoverished, what we take with to our future lives is the same. It's our karmic imprints. And that is all. So everything that we've desired will be left behind. But the imprints from that desire, that will follow. Everything we've argued about and fought with others about, those events are long gone. But those imprints will follow us. This is what we need to recognize. Thinking well on this will lead us to radically reassess what we value, where we put our mental focus.
Dine 지가 다 착바로 맞지 잠바 자왔다. 제가 디니기 될야 안 착당지는 두시지기요 말해야지. 송거다.
The verse concludes with, from now on, do not be attached to them, Jampol Drak.
디 가르 송거라서네 될야 규마사 알고 말해. 안에 분자다 인생의 과요 말해 송거 말해. donda 가르소네 인생의 분자를 봐 착바지에 유디기 롱줄에 배 차당 시우치 착바지에 디 최선마다나 디딩한 저기 팽기 말해서 개와사 두고 말해서 지상다 가르쳐고래라는 아주 지 예야 고고래 아주기 유양 고고래 지상 되네 예사당 아주기 소수기 년여바디 년디기야 지 소수랑이 잠지기 냠는지 아니 팬비에 삼는다 랑게 랑게 년디기 tum부제 컨주이네야 바 잠지게 소수게 냠내지게 잠지게 삼노다 아니 수림소야다 진비 냠는지에게 꾸머지야다 콘솔리 디초를 봐 용토에게 판도 주고 그래서 진짜 되는 제는 소수에나 개와사고 콘솔에 개와사 두고 그래서 소수게 롱주에 사바지게 되네 소수 지부도 소수게 체디게 동화사야다 소수게 땀냐다 요 체디게 디기 좀 삼마다마지 다 소수 롱주사는 이 변조사데 현리에 팬비치도 이 현리에 판도치기 되네기 교월이야 강아제 강아세야 컨트롤을 최고부야게 단달이야 이 도시는 변조사데 이 도시는 소수게 변조 요바데 강 요바디기 소수기네 비쇼 강 땅어바데 땅안 소수게 니버인의 현리야 도시네 지게 교월디기리야 지기 아니면 시인도 달이야 판도치기 아니면 면주도 달로 로버지야 야지미 지기도와 지게 지 공부자사다 되네게 토가데 지 지소리아 아니 쉽지 토려야 배셔리아 로버지야 난 도시네 권초래 최고부야라 소바다 난 도시네 배셔 땅바이나 엔디기 소설이야 개와사고 그래서 세상 안주 변조사 년유도 여바이나 델라테네 소소기 계죠 멍보사도 아니 샬레이나야 아니 디기 줍투가 차고라디 디게와사고라 제가 디닉 제바이나 소소기 아니 지게 시디캅라 게위 디기 제지네 게와 치마이나 소소리아 튕겨야고 영야래 아니 지게 디닉이 densa denjugi milu toyage denegi chatu gore jeza dini inza samlo khartang sene rangi ta rangi jam ni je da chudimla so deji samda di ba samda an jeso punyi nyensen rangi jokbo nido karchna jesole jamje samda konzu ine denegi nyamlen yon tuyagi na tabshi dayada bejuche 소소기 뉴변조되게 탑시단의 파사 대한 소소 지부드나 마연바 현례 펜비치도 이 현기 지소를 쉬쉬야 다 현례 안 동안세 현기 디기 주비에 된다래 권초를 초부에 된다 두신의 삼다지 보사지 소소의 강연 지용기 니네게 현례 쉬쉬토바이나 제자데 아니 저기 대시 진배 아주 냠내 지어서 진배 냠내 차고래 아니 수립니다 쇠배 냠내 되게 차상 누수 연구하래 제가 니네 제바이나 저기 개와 치마라 아니 지게 디 개와 차상 해려요래 제가 망어바나 디판도요 세대래야 라신이가래 판거래 개와 치마래 판도요 바래 누수는 삼당고래 세 디순고다.
It's important to understand the meaning of this verse well and not to leave here with a confused understanding. What we're being encouraged to develop is a balanced approach. And to do so, we first need to recognize how right now our attitude, our way of thinking, is out of balance. In fact, we have an extreme attitude in that we expect happiness from people and things who cannot actually lead us to happiness or cannot be causes for us to attain happiness. Our way of relating to our friends and loved ones and our way of relating to wealth and possessions. This is at fault. And in fact, we have an attitude that when we look clearly would see as being extreme because we believe that our way of relating to friends and loved ones and wealth and possessions will lead to happiness when it cannot. So this is the first thing we need to recognize. That's how out of balance we are. But when recognizing that, we shouldn't go off to another extreme and say, I'll have nothing to do with anyone and I'm going to renounce all worldly pleasures either. This is then just falling to another extreme. Rather, we're trying to develop a balanced approach and recognize that the fault is not with friends, it's not with loved ones, it's not with wealth, and it's not with possessions. It's from how we relate to them. It's that we relate to them as if these are causes for happiness, when the way of relating to them with attachment and anger, this cannot lead to happiness. So rather, as we develop minds of Dharma within us, particular love and compassion, these should guide how we relate to others. Relate to our friends and our loved ones with love and compassion, with an attitude that is ethical, with an attitude of generosity, and an attitude of patience when our friends and loved ones are in distress and expressing that to us. This is how we should relate to friends and loved ones. Not abandon them, not to turn away from them, but to relate to them with a kind heart and a tender attitude. And then towards wealth and possessions. There we, again, need to have a balanced approach. Right now, our approach is one full of desire, always wanting more. We need to recognize that. And recognize that the fault is not in our possessions, it's in our way of relating to them. Our wealth and our possessions serve a purpose. Their purpose is that we need to have a basic level of comfort that we need to determine for ourselves so that we can continue in our spiritual development and can continue to interact with society around us. Beyond that, the purpose of wealth and possessions is to ease the suffering of others. So therefore, we start to develop a relationship to our wealth and possessions where we see them as tools to aid our spiritual development, and as we spiritually develop, our abundance we can share with others. So again, the way to understand this verse, the skillful way, is not to see that there's a fault in our friends or our loved ones or having wealth and possessions, but our way of relating to them. And when to the extent we transform this relationship, we will transform how we relate to others and possessions, and we will put them to use to ease the suffering of all beings. And through doing this, we will accumulate vast stores of merit. We will also accumulate stores that we'll experience thereby in future lives of having close and loving relations with all that we meet. And we'll have our circle of friends and loved ones will expand life after life as we become ever more open-hearted. Also, we'll have an ever greater abundance of wealth and possessions, which can continue to use to benefit others. So in this way, we see, as we spiritually develop, we do not turn away from loved ones and friends, or wealth and possessions, but we rather change our relationship to them, and they become our field of benefit, as for ourselves and for others.
아디네 자다 두스친의 삼땅고래 세당 안저기 삼노땅 한게 랍제로지 마선에 두냠네 두시고래 수송고르와다.
This then is advice for us to implement and to think about further. We see there in the last line that what one is to abandon is attachment. It's the faulty way of thinking.
자당 안저기 지간이 버들랑 안저기 미세스의 로나지리에 세드 계지기 집을 미다바래 유어루고래 세지 순고래 디삼다이데 예침보 아주 낭배 최나 냠는 제알이야 미다바 삼다이데 예침보 지고래 제자 미다바 삼다도 다 세디 통두지마도 요마도 게디지에 요마도 게디시행해봐 요마도 삼다이도 마신예를 양이 계셔지기 줍는 냠는 마친 때다 지금 냠는 제야 말에 시선 뺏사기래서 뺏으면데 되는 아주 계셔 주야리야 판도 연구를해서 제가 되네 줍차네 네 시베네 흘려서 줘주고래 강아요 말해서 그래 베디나 베로시나 아주게 찍찍을 줘고나 직 미카시 되는거라 직 줘고서 다오 찍이는 나들 줘고서 돼 직대리 되지는 줘야게 잘라다 켜와다 가라가 차상 리리진 파직 차상 캐쳐줘 줘줘줘 소에서도 내내게 리리지도 다 줘야 뒤새끼지도 흘려서 줘주고 봐. 나 미카시 직 줘야게 되는데 줘야 임바질라야 디 줘야게 균에 삼는 균에 마다네 데리 균에 맞아 직지와 고거도 나 줘지도 직대리지도 직상문의 이 상문의 세하다 배직 샘찰 사가지 디민연도 기시에다 사가지 상승을 하시 강하지 안지마도 아등에 직라샤 니라샤스는 되는 형구로와 제산 빙하는 저기 벨마선데 디니게 줘야지래나 나 상상하지 가르가르 키고 가르가르 요구 차상 데리 제제반에 는 줘도 가르심 흘려지 기부지 줘셔야 돼 나상 제제면에 괜찮 되와도 직창문 이등 애디 가와요 직직 민두세 요라 아다댕 디머라기면 가르치 고래서야다 밀야기 시야다 직직지도 안 가브리아 직하나 어디디게 하면 딩딜하샤스베 되는 코로나야다 셈마기어 쳐줘야 돼 용도 베디나시 아주 미지 통도지 같이 시골에 선배기 시루르다 선배 삼로 양스다나 마신예링이 디디체 호르서 데리지에게 개주 주비에게 개발 연구를 해서 제가 미다바서 삼다데 땅고에디 개침을 해서 이제 순고래.
Now, a few minutes remaining, I want to just pull out the second line again of this verse. This life can be likened to lightning flashing across the sky. This touches on a vast and incredibly important teaching within Buddhism. In fact, it's a foundational teaching, and that is the reflection on impermanence. It's usually presented in terms of the impermanence of life, but should be reflected on far more broadly. But the reason that the focus is on the impermanence of life is because whilst we all intellectually accept death will come, and the time of death is unknown, and the manner of death is unknown, we all accept this. We don't live our life with this view. We live our life with a contrary view of, I have an abundance of time. I have plans for this year, for the next 5 years. We live our life as if we have an abundance of time. And that's the case whether we're young, middle-aged, or older. we need to counteract that, to recognize that in reality, perhaps there are decades ahead, but maybe there are not. Maybe my time in this body is rapidly coming to an end. So I better utilize what remains of this life well and strive for liberation. That is the importance of reflecting on the impermanence of this life, to turn our mind to the importance to not procrastinate, to not be deceived by worldly affairs and activities, but to strive right now to transform our mind. And you can imagine this through the analogy of, you've got a trip to go on, and if you plan and prepare well in advance of your journey, when the morning of departure comes, you'll leave in a relaxed state of mind, all your preparation is done, and you'll travel with confidence. But someone else who's just too busy, they can't get past all their activities, and then suddenly it's the morning of departure, frantically they're looking for their passports, wondering if they booked their plane ticket or not. And they will leave stressed, not sure what they're going to encounter, or if they've got their suitcase fully packed or not. This is not how we want to leave this life. So we need to reflect with the certainty that our time here is limited, and it can end at any time. Therefore, I need to, with mindfulness, be aware of my mind at all times, ensuring it's in the line of virtue, and when afflictions arise, push them aside, and keep the mind open and virtuous and loving. Thank you very much. Then we'll finish there for today. Thank you all so much.